Hi, if you're someone who puts a lot of emphasis on counting carbs, whether you're diabetic or just somebody wanting to lose weight, this video is for you. I'm your coach, Laura Campbell, and one of the mistakes I see a lot of people make, especially new diabetics, is putting so much emphasis on counting carbs, and it's really not as simple as that. Today I'm going to just touch on a few different things to consider if you're looking at counting carbs. So first I want to show you in front of me, this is a little demo I have. I have a bowl with a big ice chunk in it. I have a bowl with some medium ice cubes in it. And then I have a bowl with some crushed ice in it. So I'm just going to want to let this sit here for a few minutes and we'll get back to it in a minute. So if you're a carb counter, there's a few things I want you to consider because not all carbs are created equal. So first I want to talk about combining carbs. So let's say, for example, you sat down and ate a bowl of watermelon on an empty stomach. That's going to have a lot different impact on your blood sugar than if you ate that watermelon with something that had protein and fats in it. Let's say you had a piece of chicken with it or some cheese or something like that with protein and fats in it. That's going to have a lot different effect on your blood sugar. So on an empty stomach, just the watermelon has a lot of sugar in it, your blood sugar is going to go up. But once you combine it with that cheese or meat or whatever it is that has the protein and carbs, it causes your blood sugar to stabilize more. So you're not going to get that spike as much. It's going to be much more stable. So it has a big impact on your blood sugar. So just to say, I can't eat that because it makes my blood sugar go up. Well, are you eating it on an empty stomach or are you eating it with something? Is it changing how it affects your body? So a lot of people will focus on the glycemic index of food, and that's the rate at which that food turns into sugar in your body. So something like watermelon would have a high glycemic index. Something like cheese or chicken would have a very low glycemic index. There's actually a glycemic index diet out there that I did years ago, but the thing to remember is the glycemic index of all these foods is based on the fact if you're eating them by themselves. So a high glycemic index food like watermelon and a low glycemic index food like chicken, you put them together and it totally changes the glycemic index. So I'm just kind of hitting these points real quick. I just want to get you thinking, but that's one thing to think about is how food is being combined. The other thing is resistant starch. So resistant starch is this pretty cool thing where if you take a starchy food like oatmeal, potatoes, pasta, rice, those kind of things, you put them in the refrigerator and completely cool them down, it creates something called resistant starch. And resistant starch is basically, in layman's terms, what it means is you're reducing the amount of carbohydrates it has and increasing the amount of protein. So it's a pretty cool thing that happens. So that's why things like overnight oats are so great, because you can still get that great carbohydrate, but it's not as much of a carbohydrate and it's more fiber. For example, this oatmeal that I eat, RX oatmeal, love it, it's great stuff. But if I were to put milk or water in it overnight and put it in the refrigerator, it's going to have fewer carbs than if I were just to cook it in the morning. So like when I cook it in the morning, it has 34 grams of carbs. If I put the milk or water in it the night before and put it in the refrigerator, let it cool down, it's going to have fewer carbs. How many fewer carbs? I don't really know. That's where it gets a little tricky. But the key point I want you to remember there is that putting those kind of foods in the refrigerator, cooling them down, and then eating them is going to reduce those carbohydrates. So that's why leftovers are so great. You can put in the refrigerator and it's going to have less carbohydrates. So if you're a pasta lover or you love these kind of foods, and if you're diabetic and watching those carbs, that's a way where you can include more carbs in your diet by reducing the carbs of those foods that you love. The other thing is exercise. So if you're, let's say, within about an hour of working out, if you work out, eat within about an hour, any carbohydrates you eat, not any, but a lot of the carbohydrates you eat are going to be used to replace all the energy you used working out. So let's say you went to the gym after work, you worked out, came home, ate a bowl of spaghetti. It's not going to have a huge impact on your blood sugar. Again, it's going to depend on your portion size, which that's a whole other topic altogether, but it's not going to have the same effect on your blood sugar as if you peeled yourself off the couch and went in the kitchen and ate the spaghetti. So exercise makes a huge difference in how your body's processing those carbs. Also, the carbs you eat before exercise is going to have an impact. So about an hour or so before you eat, if you have some high carbohydrate foods and then work out, your body's going to burn up a lot of those carbs, and it's not going to have as much of an impact on your blood sugar. So again, about an hour before, about an hour after, it's not exact. That 2-hour window is really the best time to eat carbs, because your body is going to process them and use them the way they're supposed to be used. So let's go back to the bowls I have here. So these represent different kinds of carbs, because like I said, all carbs are not created equal. So we're going to start here with this big chunk. So you see how there's a little bit of water in here, but it's still pretty solid. So that represents a good, healthy, complex carb like oatmeal. So you've got oatmeal that when you eat the oatmeal, it takes a while for those oats to turn to sugar in your body, especially if you can, like I said, combine it with a little bit of fat and protein. I like to put, even though this calls for using water, I usually will put some milk in here because it's going to give me more protein and fats. And again, this has a little bit of fat and protein in it already. So by combining that and using that tip, along with the fact that oatmeal is a good complex carb, this is going to stay with me for a long time. It's not going to affect my blood sugar. So think about it as a big ice cube. You want to eat more foods that are complex carbohydrates, because like a big ice cube, it's going to take a long time to melt, which in your body, it's going to take a long time for that to turn to sugars, and then hopefully it won't cause any kind of blood sugar spikes. It's just going to keep you stable. So oatmeal is our big cube. The medium cubes here, you can see there's a little more water in those. They're melting a little bit faster, and that represents something like an apple. Apple is still a very good complex carb, but it does have more sugar in it. So it's going to spike your blood sugar a little bit more than not a complex carb, but it's not going to be as bad as some of the other things. And again, you combine this with a little peanut butter or something, and it's going to stabilize you even more. So you got the apple, it's a good medium carb. Ice cubes are, good bit of water, but it's still melting. This bowl here with the crushed ice, you can see it's almost all water now. So this represents our Skittles. So Skittles is pure sugar. So when you eat it, it's going to cause that spike and then cause that crash. If you're diabetic, we really don't want that. Now, if you have low blood sugar and you're trying to bring it up, this is the perfect thing to bring it up quickly. But if you're just trying to plan your regular meals, anything that is very processed, very sugar heavy like this, it's going to spike you really fast. You're going to get that spike, and if you're diabetic, that's definitely not something you want to, like I said, unless your blood sugars are already low. So let's line this up here. So we've got our highly processed carbs. We've got our good complex carb, but a little bit more sugar, and then we have our really good complex carb that stays with you for a long time. So let's say you have 30 grams of carbs of this versus 30 grams of carbs of this versus 30 grams of carbs of this. If you were just counting carbs, that would all be the same. You'd put that in your MyFitnessPal, your app, whatever, said I had my 30 grams of carbs for that meal, I'm good to go. But every single one affects your body differently. Then this one, blood sugar is going to shoot up. This one is going to go up a little bit but be more stable. This one is going to go up a little bit and be stable for longer. So I know I've thrown a lot at you today. I just kind of want to hit the high points, just get you thinking about carbohydrates, because they're not all created equal. It depends on what kind of carbs you get, how you're combining the food, how you're preparing the food, what kind of exercise you're doing. It's all so different. So when people say, well, I'm diabetic, I need 30 grams of carbs per meal, well, what kind of carbs is it? This is not going to be healthy for you. These are. So it's a lot more complex than people think it is. So again, I just kind of hit the high points here today, just kind of get you thinking. But if you want more information, you can join my Facebook group, Healthy Diabetic with Coach Laura. And I have a website, simplyfitandfab.com, that has a lot of great information, a lot of recipes on there. That's a good place to go. I'm also starting a course Monday. It's called the New Diabetics Roadmap. Our registration ends this Friday at midnight. So if you're interested, feel free to send me a direct message. I'll also put a link on here so you can find out more about that. But the course will be a lot of education like this, and we'll go into even more detail and explain it a little better to you. But probably the most valuable thing is you'll get a lot of actual action steps. So it's one thing to know this, but it's another thing to know how to put it into practice and how to fit it into your life without making yourself crazy and without spending hours thinking about what you're eating. So we'll do a lot of give you a lot of direction on different action steps you can take, simple things you can do to keep your blood sugar stable, to keep it where it needs to be. So if you're interested in that, send me a direct message. Again, I'll post a link up here. Deadline for that is Friday, and it starts on Monday. So that's it for today. I'm your coach, Laura Campbell. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.